We're going on now to topic 3 of chapter 5, dealing particularly with the various patterns of multiplication of polynomials. So as we see in this first one, we're going to go 15 times 2, which is 30, x to the third. I'm writing with my mouse, that's why it's a little funny. Okay, we'll switch over to the pen here very shortly. So there is a negative times a positive, and we get a negative (10.4) x to the 7th. Now for number 3, we're sort of multiplying fractions, and negative times negative will give us a positive, so that takes care of the sign. Now 5 goes into there once, 5 goes into there 7 times, so we then get 2 for a numerator, 49 for a denominator, y to the 6th. Now remember, the y is in the numerator. Now for this one, we have how many negative signs? 1 out of 3. So that's an odd number of negative signs. So our answer will be negative. And there's just a 1 there, so this is 35. And now we add our exponents. There's a 1, 3, 10. Now here we're multiplying a monomial by a trinomial, so we're going to use the distributive principle. So let's see, this is going to be 10 y to the third minus 35 y to the second minus 15 y. Now an interesting thing, in later chapters and in the next course, you're going to be taking this trinomial and factoring out the greatest common factor, which is 5y, and you end up with this. All right, number 6. Again, we're going to distribute, and let's watch the signs. Okay, so we're just checking the signs. Negative times a positive gives me a negative. Negative times a negative gives me a positive. Negative times a positive gives me a negative. And we're just adding all our exponents. And the same for number 7. And it never hurts to go back and check it. Again, once you hit enter, if you're taking a QuizMe, you can't go back. And if you're taking a test, you can go back in a test, but it pays to check your work. You want to get the highest score you can. Now, as we go into number 8, where we're multiplying binomials by binomials, remember the FOIL. So our first, y squared. Our outers, a positive 3y. Our inners, a negative 15y, which results in a negative 12y. We do that part mentally, and then we end up with a negative 45 for our last. Now here again, it's x squared. Now for our outers, we get I'm going to write this twice here, a negative 2/9 x and a positive 1/5 x. And for our last, we get a negative 2/45. Now our middle terms are like terms, so we really need to join them by having a common denominator of 45. Now I'm going to multiply this by a 1 in the form of 5/5. This by a 9, well, a 1 in the form of 9/9. So this gives me a negative 10, and this is a positive 9. So my middle term, it looks like I'm going to end up with a negative 1/45 x. And let me check that for number 9 here. Yep, that is correct. Now for these next few, we can try the FOIL. Now remember, you can always set this up horizontally and then do it vertically, or vice versa. But this is going to be a 20 x squared. Now my outers are 35x. My inners, let me put it up here, 35x. My inners are a negative 12x. So my middle term will be a positive 23x. I did this mentally, but I'm writing it out for you. And then my last is a negative 21. And just check that. Yep. Now again, we're doing the FOIL. Our first gives me a 10 x to the 4th now. My outers give me a 20 x squared. This is a negative 35 x squared. So that's a negative 15 x squared. Now if you have to write it out, do so. You want to be sure to get it right. And this is a negative 70. And that's correct. Now here we're using that special technique of squaring a binomial, where we square the, or you could write it again and then FOIL it, but that special technique, square this term. Multiply these together, that gives me a 66. And that should be, oh, got a phone call coming in. Okay, it gave me a little time to add 66 and 66. That was a negative then 132y. And when we squared a negative 11, we get a positive 121. Now again, the class that I give, the lecture, I go over this rather thoroughly on special products. We're just using it here. So square this first term, multiply these, double it, gave us our middle term, square the last term. And this becomes, by the way, that we will mention a lot, a perfect square trinomial. Now as we set up number 13, you could set it up horizontally, but I like this method of vertical multiplication. So now, a negative 8 times a positive 8 is a negative 64. A negative 8 times a negative 5y is a positive 40y. A negative 8 times this is a negative 8y squared. Now here's the key to this. When you do your next row, y times a positive 8 gives you a positive 8y. You put it in the vertical like term column. Now y times this will be a negative 5y squared. And then your last term is y cubed. Now you put another line there, using my line tool again, and then you add them up. So since they're in like term columns, they're very easy to do. So in number 16, they are using, and they want you to use vertical multiplication. Again, you set this up in like term columns, so it really cuts down on chances you may be making errors. Okay. In number 17, they're asking us to find the area of a rectangle, which is length times width. So I just FOILed that. This is my 6x squared. Now my outers were 9x. My inners were 10x, adds up to 19x. And my last were positive 15. Now for number 18, what they want us to do is to find the area of a triangle. Now remember, the formula for area of a triangle is area equals 1/2 the base times the height. Make that a B, and this will be the H. There we go. So they're saying our height is that. So I'm going to go 1/2 times 8x. Switching those around, which is okay. And then 2x minus 7. Oh, wait a minute, wrong one. 3x plus 8. So here, interestingly, I can take 2 goes into there once, goes into there 4. Okay, I don't have to worry about the fraction anymore. So this is going to be 12x squared. Remember, it's 4x here. And 4x times that is plus 32x for number 18, which is correct. All right, this next one is find the area of a rectangle with these sides. Well, we can just clear that and get our workspace. It'll be 4x plus 3 and 2x minus 7. And we'll FOIL that and get 8x squared. Now my outers are I'm going to have to write this one out, negative 28x. My inners are a 6x. And my last are a negative 21. And so it comes 8x squared. Do this, negative 22x minus 21 for number 19. And that looks good. And now the last one. Well, for this one, we're going to take this, which is a square, and square it. So, using that special technique, this gives me 9x squared. Square the first term. Multiply these together. I get a negative 15x. Double that. Negative 30x. And then square my last term. And that should do it. And that is correct. Okay, another section, and this was just under 15 minutes.